These are your customers, the people who pay the bills and keep you in business. So an important question would be, who's controlling them? Okay, so control is probably too strong a word, and whoever it is almost certainly isn't some giant puppet master, but the fact remains that customers do not often act independently. Take this handsome chap. He represents a customer, and while he may make the final purchase decision, others will often influence that decision. Now, these may be people with some authority over the choice he makes, or people who are affected by that choice, or simply people whose opinions he listens to. And to complicate things further, each of these primary influencers are themselves influenced by others. Our customer is actually sitting in the center of a vast interconnected web of influence. So the obvious question is, so what? Well, let's use a simple example. If you believe that your customer has 100% autonomy and is completely sovereign in their decision making, then you would logically allocate 100% of your focus onto them. But if you discovered that they were only responsible for, say, 50% of the final decision, you would reduce this focus accordingly. You would look to discover who else was influencing the decision, determine how much influence they were having, and then distribute your focus somewhat proportionately. And essentially, this is what the tool does. It helps you identify those influences in your market and lets you assess your current focus and resource allocation. So where do we find influencers? Well, there are three good places to start: the decision-making unit, the supply chain, and outside opinion. Now, decision-making units can be formal or informal. It's when people from the same organization have some stake in the outcome, or maybe they have a specific requirement that needs addressing. In both of these cases, they will have some influence on the final decision. Now, supply chain is typically external to the organization, and it covers all those people that touch the product along its journey to the end user. So imagine you're selling breakfast cereal. The buyer would be a parent, the consumer could be their child, and the person who decides whether or not to stock your product will be the retail buyer. And each one of these individuals will have significant influence on your sales. Now, outside opinion influencers are people that may not ever buy your product, but their advice, opinions, and recommendations have a huge influence on those that do. Take this baby's parent. Now, they want to buy infant milk, and let's say they have 3 companies to choose from. Communications from these companies have to penetrate a defensive circle of trusted advisors whose opinions essentially filter those messages and will have a big impact on the buyer's final decision. Okay, so now we know where to look for influencers. We now need to define the different roles that influencers perform. So here are 10 to get us started. Customers, an easy one to start, the people that buy your product. End users, now these are the consumer of the product, and they can be a long way down the supply chain, depending on the market you're in. Intermediaries are anybody in the supply chain who isn't the customer or end user. Referrers are people in a position to introduce potential customers. Specifiers are those who decide the requirements and set the criteria a product must meet. Payers are the people who control the purse strings, so purchase departments or the people who control the budget. Advocates are non-employees who promote your product to others. Advisors are people who assist the customer in reaching their decision. And experts are acknowledged authorities in their field whose opinions are valued by others. And finally, trendsetters. These are people or companies who others follow and try to emulate. And that is it. We've covered what influence is, where you find influencers, and some of the roles that influencers play. So now on to the next video where we'll use the tool.